Welcome back. So we've got our entire API set up now, and the next thing we want to do is we want to actually get this our API hooked up to a real database. We're going to be using Postgres, and we're going to be doing a couple steps in order to get there, where we can have our API actually talking to a database and getting our database migrated and stuff like that. Um, We're going to do one more preliminary step though before we get there, and that is going to be putting our API into a Docker container and getting that up and running. So we're going to jump in and we're going to, I've already set these up, and we're going to come in. I'm going to actually do a very brief explanation and catch you guys up to speed with where I'm at here. Essentially, we have two new files. We've got, here's our project directory still, our project structure. We've got a new file called Docker Compose, and we've got a Docker file here. Now, if you haven't went into Docker and don't know anything about it, this is probably not the best video for you. This is going to assume you have used some Docker in the past. And so I would go and get familiar if you're not really too aware of containers, Docker itself. I am actually learning myself some of this, and so you'll probably get a better description of this in other sources. So we're going to go through here. What we want at the end of this video is we want to actually just be able to Docker up. We want to get our API running, and our services are actually going to be running in a container and not on our actual local machine. So taking a look at our Docker file itself, we've got our version here, our working directory. This is within the container, so we're going to be throwing all of our contents into this. Everything is going to be referencing this folder. What this is actually saying is we're going to copy our package and package lock into that working directory. So that's going to be copied to here. We're going to install all of our node modules. We're going to install nodemon. We're going to copy everything within this API folder. We're going to copy the contents of that and throw them into the Docker working directory, that API directory we've created. We're going to expose our port 3000 within the container itself, and then we're going to run this command here. And what this command is going to do, this is simply to where we have this watch here, and what we want to do is we want to be able to, as we make changes to our API, they're going to be picked up and rerun immediately. So in addition to that Docker file, that is what we can say is that is one container. However, we do want to have something that is actually kind of sitting above that container, and that's going to allow us to launch multiple containers. Eventually, this is going to be Kubernetes, but for now, we're going to be using, at least locally, we're going to be using this Docker Compose. And what this is going to do, this is going to allow us to list all of our services. Eventually, we'll have other services here as well. For now, we just have the API. And it's going to allow us to, we'll just go through this file. We're going to say, hey, this is our API service. You're going to build the Docker file that is within the API directory. So that's the one we just talked about. We're going to expose our port 3000 on our host machine, and then we're going to actually use that port 3000 that we exposed in the container. And then we're actually also going to we're going to mount the API folder. So when we copied the contents of this folder here, this actually is just a static copy. This isn't going to, if we make a change, we would actually need to go in and rebuild that image. Well, that's going to be a huge pain, obviously. So instead of that, we're going to actually mount this API folder to the container, and that way when we make changes, they're immediately going to be put um, into our vault, into our folder within the container itself. So in order to actually get our Docker Compose up and running, we're going to run this Docker Compose up, and we're going to build our images. Now I've already actually built these images. These can take a while, especially this npm install inside. That can actually take a long time. And we'll see that our container's running, and we've only have our one API service that's running, and we'll see that it's running at port 3000. So if we come here, this is actually welcome to the Streaks API. So if we come back, so this container is running, it is running live. We can actually try something different as well, and that is, let's go ahead and make sure that we are actually reloading our changes immediately. So we'll just come in and we're just going to change this. Welcome to the Streaks API. Let's go ahead and, can we do task? So we're just getting an empty array. That looks good. Let's actually come in here and we'll just add a couple exclamations, and we should see that, and there we go. So it automatically reloaded. It's restarting. We can see Nomad restarted due to changes, starting it back up, and our changes are there. And we can actually undo. We'll see that it's restarting, and now it's good. So that's going to be it for today's video. In the next one, we're going to be installing Postgres. We are going to be getting our database actually migrated using our task and our task completion schemas. And then we're going to be hooking in, after that, we're going to be hooking things up, that database, hooking it into our API, and starting to actually use it. So we'll see you next time. If you're liking this this build series, please subscribe, like the video or subscribe. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.